Hey folks, Rich Burdess here from Brighter Days, Christchurch, New Zealand, with part 4 of 4 of the PowerApp's tracking Power app that will help you track something. In this case, it's pipeline, but you can track anything with this. And this is dashboard, single screen application. In this tutorial, we'll be covering off how to update items in line. The last tutorial we handled adding new items and creating them, and then now we want to be able to update items as they come in with a few little tweaks around showing and hiding these buttons as well as a little extra. And if we get time, we'll drop a search box up here as well to make it a bit easier to filter through what you're looking for. Okay, if you're just starting off on this session, there's 3 other parts you should catch up with, and a LinkedIn post. It's got all the formulas that you need. So check in the notes of this recording for those links. And yeah, if you come in at number 4, that's cool. But if you want to build the whole application, start at 1 and work your way through. Great thing to do when we're all in lockdown here in New Zealand and overseas. So yeah, give it a shot. All right, so let's jump back into our design canvas. Get rid of that. And clear that up a little bit. All right, so what we're going to do is, these aren't a form, but they're a gallery. Okay, it's a row in a gallery, and I've got an update button here, which does nothing at the moment. Let's show you what the onSelect statement does for that. Nothing. Okay, so just select. So it just selects the row. But what I want to do is push any information in here straight to SharePoint. Now, in the last session, we did a form under the Add New, and what we're going to do here is a patch. So with a patch, I can submit specific columns of data to my data source. I don't have to submit the whole thing, and I can string multiple screen information with different fields from different screens across my application into the same patch statement, different to a submit form, which a form only consists on one screen, although you can use variables inside of that form to update values that may happen from other screens. But the flexibility of patch allows you to do a lot more with it, but it also has a downside, is that you have to code it yourself. So you've got to write your own things. So to get started with a patch, now let's remember, first of all, these items already exist in our data source in SharePoint. So we need to know what the item is that we're going to submit to. And so that's not difficult to do, but there obviously you can patch a new item as well as an edit of an item. So this scenario, we're going to just do edit, but a new is pretty similar as well. All right, so let's get started. So patch is patch. Push tab on your keyboard, get the bracket, and then we can see up here it's going to say what's the data source that we're going to send to, and then what record are we going to do, and then what are we going to do with that record, right? So we know that if you've been following the tutorials, the data source is BD pipeline, or Brighter Days pipeline. So that, and then a comma, and then we want to work out what the record is. So that's a filter basically where we're going to go first. Just going to find the first item off this filter, and then we're going to filter BD pipeline again, because that is the data source. So we want to filter the data source to find the item we want to update. And then the ID of that item is SharePoint list. Every SharePoint list has an ID. Item has an ID. If you don't have an ID column in your different data source, then make sure you know what the unique identifier is for that. You should have, otherwise you won't be able to generally connect a PowerApp to it. And then it's this item dot ID. Cool. And then it's bracket to close that bracket, bracket to close the filter, and then a comma, because we're going to carry on doing stuff. So we've worked out what the record is. So this item.id is, we don't see the field for the ID, but that has got a hidden field like this item.id. It can pull out the properties of that ID value as you want to see it, right? Okay, we'll just jump down to a new line to make this a bit easier to read. So you want a squiggly open bracket. They're just going to start off how you're going to submit things into your data source. Now, if you've done what I've done, have no spaces in your SharePoint list columns, then you can type what I type. If you do have spaces, you'll need to get the actual name of those columns in a patch. So for title, we know it's title. But if I'd renamed my title column client or something like that, the system name in SharePoint would still be title. So if you've ever looked at SharePoint and you want to work out what the system name of the column is, it's not necessarily the view you'll see, the name of the column you see when you look at it in a view in SharePoint. You have to go into list settings and then click on the column that you want to view, and then in the URL you'll see the name of that, the actual name of that column. That's where you can copy and paste the name. It'll often say something equals and then the name of the column. Looking at my screen, we could just quickly jump into that. If I jump here, and I might be able to get into SharePoint from here. I'll just show you what I'm talking about when I talk about that. So jump into your PowerApp site or wherever you're building things. Go to your site contents. I did click that. It's taking a second to do it. And then find your list. And then when you're in your list, so these columns here, that's not necessarily the name that PowerApps wants. So I want to click on my little cog in the upper right, go to list settings, and then I can click on any of these. So if I get likely start date, right? So I see when I click that, I get the field information about it, I see the friendly name of it, and this is the thing you're going to look for if you change the name of your list in SharePoint, right? Or list column in SharePoint. It's that. So it might have some spaces in it with some coding for the spaces. Not %20, it's like underscore x0200 underscore stuff. So it's something like that. So that's what you want to be looking for if you've changed the name to something different. But in this one, I know I've got a title, and it's called title, and I need to work out what the list in my data source that I want to send is. And I don't think I've renamed my columns here, so that's called DD1, and I've got client, which is actually title, and I've called it text input 2. So let's give that a click on it to get a name so it looks like it actually makes sense. I believe I can use that. Cool. So that's now called text client. What I mean there is if you string a massive patch statement together and they're all called drop down 1, drop down 2, text input 1, input 2, you don't know what each one means and it gets a bit harder to understand. So when you type ahead, you can see some of the stuff. And look what I did. I did a lowercase client and uppercase client. So I don't really want to do that. I'm going to change that name again to make it actually make sense. So text client, go back to the old lowercase, lowercase, and then we'll give it another name, gal, so I know that it's in this section. And while we're here, we'll just change all these as well, right? So DD status gal, date chased gal, txt, oops, budget, this guy mount, just because find a naming convention that you can work out with your team so you know what you're doing and everything's consistent. So date start underscore gal, and then we'll go txt remaining, then the last one dd drop down dd status gal. If you've been paying attention, you'd have seen that guy, you can't call him dd status because I've already called that guy dd status gal. So for job status, dd job status gal, right? So we've got all those named up, so now we know which ones are going to work. So let's stretch this down a little bit, and let's go for, oops, that's my phone, not yours. The title is client gal. So see it there, and we need to tell PowerApps or the patch statement what kind of type of field it is. So full stop, a period, text, right? That'll do that one. Comma for a new line. Let's do category. Now category is a drop down field. It's a choice field in SharePoint, so it is what you call a complex field type. So it needs a bit more help to get itself submitted to SharePoint. And I'm going to copy and paste what you need to show the patch statement for a complex field type. All right. I need an open bracket there, so it's an open squiggly as well. I just copied that from somewhere else. That's why it's got something different. All right, so category is OData. Let's put this on another line to make it a bit more easy to see. There we go. So we need a open squiggly and a closed squiggly, and inside that we OData type, and then Microsoft Azure connector. Just pause the screen and copy it as needed. And so basically that's going to say, hey, this is a different kind of field, and then send the value of that field, or send to the value in the SharePoint column this value here, which is the status of pipeline. Right? Next column is going to be chased, which is a date field, and so that is date chased gal, and then because it's a date field, we can do selected date. Oops. So you've got text, you've got selected dot value for other drop downs, and then for a date type, you've got selected date. Okay. Like the start date, colon, and again date start. Did I call it? Yep, date start gal dot selected, and you'll see it pop up anyway there, right? So we can skip through that a bit quicker. The amount, that's the budget amount coming in. Now that's a number field in SharePoint, if you made it a number field. And so for that, if I just did txt amount gal dot text, and PowerApp would throw an error at me. It may not do it right away, but it's not actually going to like that, because if I put text in there that's not a like it's just regular text, not a number, then that could break. Now to check over here, I can stop people from putting in numbers anyway into that field. Possibly, if I want to get rid of that, select that, and then format, change that to number, so people can't then type in other things. But you still might get a currency sign in there, which could blow things out. But change it to a number, and then that should work better for you. And you go back here. So to make that work now, I want to put the value either side of it. So that will then force it to be a number. So to tell SharePoint, hey, you're going to get a number value. Just in case, I haven't closed out the brackets here, so if I hadn't done that first, it might still look alright until I close it out, and then I get red arrows on it. So just a good way to get that sorted first. So amount left, same thing, value, txt, what do we call it? Hang on, jump back up, budget remaining, text remaining. Alright. So you have a memory like I said today, so that's alright. Let's get that up and in. Close the brackets. Job status. The job status is also a complex field type. It's another choice field. And you can do the same thing with person fields as well. There's no person fields in this particular application, but it's a similar process, and I think I've got some other YouTube clips to show you how to patch against a person field. If you have any questions, just ask. I can show you how to do that, but you've got to grab a few more different fields, like the claims name, email, and a few other description fields that need to go with user profile against the service. So it just gets a bit more complex for a person, but same kind of thing. So we've already got one up in here, so I can just basically repeat that. So job status, let's do another line, and then rather than that status gal, I'm going to go job underscore status. So that's picking that one up, and that's the end of the fields that I want to submit. So if I've got them all selected there, if I scroll up a little bit, I can see I've got all my fields selected, so that's all I need. Alright, and because that was a squiggly there, I still need to close out the squiggly up in here. So I'll go back over there to make it look more obvious. And then I've got brackets to close out for the patch statement as well. So then close bracket, that's closed, no errors showing in there. Sometimes they take a second to show up, but just we should be seeing that, no errors. And then I patch the item, then I want to refresh the data source, and then I want to clear collect my information, just to show you that if you patch it and then do a straight clear collect, PowerApp doesn't always know that the data source is refreshed. Some data sources work better than others. For SharePoint, find that it's better to refresh it and then collect that data again. Obviously, if you've got a massive data source, it's going to take a bit longer to refresh. So remember that. And see how you work. If it gets cumbersome, then work on other ways to allow that refresh to look a bit less obvious. So maybe you have a pop-up screen and a sort of a swirling animation to say your status is being updated, and then it all updates itself. So refresh that, and then we'll do another clear collect. Again, my pipeline, and then that's the name of a local collection, and our remote connection is BD pipeline. Alright, and that is all we need to patch items back into SharePoint. So let's look at off our SharePoint data source. If I go back in here, go back to my list, we should have one of the aardvarks up the top. Well, let's change that so we can see them larger to smaller. For our IDs, whenever you're ready, SharePoint. So amount left, we've got nothing in that column at the moment. All right, and we'll make a change in here as well, just to show you that it will patch up. Pop it into play mode. Let's make it aardvark holdings 1. And 3 make a difference there. Budget remaining 1 3 2, and there's change the status. I'll keep it active because otherwise it's going to drop off this list of items up in here. Change the date to the 8th. All right, update it. You see it's updating. We've got little thinking dots running along the top. And it's updated, and we've refreshed the data source at the same time. Jump in back into PowerApps, and then magically that should, if we have to refresh it. For the aardvark holdings, there we go, that one there, and it's updated, and aardvark 2 is still the same. All right, and we're going to do one last little thing in this tutorial. Is I got feedback from one of my buddies in the PowerApps Champions group that that's too many buttons, Rich. Just show the button that you want to work on. So to make that magic happen, I'll show you what I mean. Is I can change my visibility of my button. I've done this earlier already, so I'm just going to fake it, show you what I'm talking about, and then we'll step through how to make it. So don't worry too much about that. But a context variable on the item that I've selected. So say I want to update Astromech, click that, and my update rolls down to that one. Or by and large, or let's say I'm going to change the status, or I'm going to change my active to blocked on that one. So then I've got a field here. Could work out some other sort of background here just to grade them or make it, because it looks like a lot of white space at the moment. But this is a little tip to make if you've got massive amounts of data and it gets too many updates. Another way to do this is to do the on select and have a hidden button, and then on change with a delay, call that button to push the items up. But sometimes it's useful to have an update button. If you want like a real-time update, you can do that as well. Just remember that it will happen after you click out of each cell. So to hide these buttons, or hide the buttons, let's go back up to the top line. And all I've done is in each of the fields, I've kept the select parent in there, but I've created a context variable called row edit, con row edit, and it's this item ID. So basically grab the ID of this row and make that the value of my context variable every time I click in it. And then all I've done it for every column, every field type. And what I've done on the visibility status or visibility formula for I never get those right, whether it's supposed to be status, formula, expression, whatever you want to call it. But the visibility of the update button, I've set to, rather than a straight con row edit, I've said if the value of con row edit equals this item's ID, so 54 we can see there, if this item is 54, then show the button, else don't show the button. So for all these other ones, the value isn't there. So the context variable is running on all those buttons. It's as we change them, we click and sit down there, astromech. We've got, oops, obviously that's not going to show up because that's the top item, but we can just click, hold Alt down on a keyboard, make that work. Click on a different field type, and it will show up and move along. Make it a bit easier, possibly, to do your update button. Just a nice little simple tip to make that work. So that's how to patch from a single screen application into your SharePoint data source. It'll be the same for SQL, same for Common Data Service as well. Whack it in there if you want to. And that covers off our little application. So in 4 sessions, we've gone from nothing to a fully featured little tracking app that will allow you to track pipelines of activity with filters and respond to you clicking on buttons to show items, allow us to create new fields, new items in there, and allow us to change the values and give us like different kind of properties, so we can switch into read-only mode for closed items or back into edit mode for open items. So that's the little demo. I hope it's all worked out for you with the 4 sessions. Any questions, just reply in the comments. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, ask questions, and join your local PowerApps user group to contribute back to the community, learn from us, and then also help others on their journey as well. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.